Hello everyone, it's great to have you on board. It's another time with Tutor.io, the entity 624, and in today's tutorial, we are taking the course MAC111, and basically, it's all about communication. And in our last class, we talked about mass communication, and in today's class, we are going to be discussing what it means by noise. For those of us who are new to the stream, let's ensure to subscribe to the channel. Let's ensure to turn on the notification bell so we don't get to miss out on any of our recent uploads. And most importantly, if you haven't gotten the keynotes of the course yet, you want to ensure to request the keynotes of this particular course, and peradventure you miss some volumes of classes, you want to ensure to reach out to us and also request the volumes of classes you might miss. And all you need to do is to reach out to us through our official website, which is tutor.io.net. Just Google tutor.io now, find the white tab button on the top right corner on our official website. You use that as a direct message, and we're going to be happy to have you on board. Now, let's get straight into it. Talking about noise, you can tell that we have discussed communication at large, and speaking of which, noise is some serious interference with communication process. Communication, as effective as it might seem, all right, it can be very, all right, disorganized, less effective, with no feedback, all right, is in position. Now, when we talk about noise, noise is simply referred to as the interference that keeps a message from being understood. All right. Interference that keeps a message from being understood. I mean, there is no need to communicate if you're unable to pass the message across. There's no need to communicate if you're able to get your message across. All right, that is the whole purpose of communication, getting a message across, passing an information across. But the biggest problem of that is, all right, so noise has gone beyond just physical sound or distraction. Noise goes way, way deeper than that. Now, speaking of which, we have different types of noise. Speaking of which, we have physical noise, the psychological noise, all right, physiological noise as well, linguistic noise, okay, and a whole lot more. So, speaking of this physical noise, this comes from the environment, all right. The physical noise comes from the environment. This one comes from the environment. All right. We also have psychological. This is the noise that comes from within. This is more like internal distraction. So this is internal. But for physiological, it is an interference from the body. All right. Maybe a feeling of, you can imagine in a class, you're trying to lecture or educate someone, and that person is hungry. The person will be very, very distracted because there is a pain in the tummy. There is a feeling of weakness. So the appetite to understand, the appetite to learn will be very low if the appetite for food has not been attended to. So this is the physiological noise. All right, and this is the physiological noise, which is from the body. And the linguistic noise is from the source of inability to use the language. We say communication, in communication, you need to use the appropriate symbol, all right? Appropriate mode of communication. When we say appropriate symbol, now it's not really symbol passive. We are simply saying that, okay, everything you are using from spoken words to symbols, communication means it must not be above the edge of the receiver. All right, the receiver needs to be able to interpret what you have been able to encode. It must be able to decode what you have encoded. Now, if you have not choose the language you will understand or the symbols or signs it relates with, then there's a problem. And this is where the linguistic problems comes from. So we have that as that. Let's take a step further. Now, in communication, there are theories, all right? And before we talk about what theories we have, let's talk about what a theory is itself. So when we talk about theories are derived through the process known as scientific method, all right? And if you had paid attention long enough, when we did GST 101 in 100 level, GST 105, philosophy of science in the 100 level first semester, we made it clear that when it comes to science, science is very systematic. Science is intentional about building precept upon precept in the sense that you cannot just jump into conclusion. One step must lead to another step. The next step must lead to the next step. And your steps, your precepts, must be logical and empirical, meaning that you must be able to show how you arrived at this junction. All right, it must be very okay. This is how you got started, and by the bringing of fire, by the bringing of gas and a spark, you're able to create fire. All right, you can't just say, "Oh, I made this fire, no gas, no spark." Then how do you explain? All right, science has to do with facts. All right, and this is the concern of theory. Theories are there to give a better, a detailed understanding, a proper understanding about a particular concept or ideas. Then that as theories. Now let's take a step further. I want us to try as much as we can cover a lot so that we can details. Let's just use details so that we can maybe one more class on this course and we can call it a wrap. So the first theory we are talking about now is called the normative theory. Normative theory. Now we'll talk about the normative theory. It is a type of theory that describes an idea. All right. It is a type of theory. This normative theory describes an ideal way for media system to be structured and operated. Now, we've been talking about communication so far, all right? Speaking of the origin, genesis, the evolution, then we talk about mass communication. Now, it's all about communication, like I said earlier. But what we are intentional about now, when we now talk about theory in this sense, we are looking at those theories that help communication to be effective, those theories that can be used in this field of mass communication. So to start with is the normative theory. Now, this normative theory is intentional about giving a proper description, all right, and about the proper way or the ideal means or way in which a media system should be structured and how it should be operated in order to get an anticipated result. This is for the normative theory. So we have normative theory, which is about structure. It's supposed to be media structure for operation. Authoritarian median theory. This theory is the oldest of the press theory, right? This authoritarian median theory is said to be the oldest. It is an idea that placed all form of communication under the control of governing elites or authorities. Now, this theory is about the fact that there should always be a governing body over every press or media station. This is what this theory is all about. Now, let's take a step further. Now, there's something called selective pretension. Selective pretension. When we talk about selective pretension, what are we simply referring to? Now, selective pretension is the process by which people tend to remember best and longest information that is consistent with their pre-existing attitude. Meaning to say, you intend to keep what makes sense to you, and you dispose information that makes little or no impact. Selective pretension. Here, you are intentional about relating with information, not just relating with these informations, but also keeping them for as long as you want because you find this information appealing. Whatever it is, you deem fit. This is for selective pretension. For those of us who have not gotten the keynote, like I said earlier, it's highly essential. There's a lot of things in the keynote that we don't get to discuss here on YouTube because basically it's more like an introduction. The proper detailing is done in the private class, basically on Telegram, where we do a one-on-one discussion. And this is why I keep encouraging us to please join early. When we join early, we tend to do a lot together, all right, on Telegram, taking our time to go through without being under unnecessary duress. So for tonight, here is what we'll call it a wrap. And in our next class, just a few more classes, we should be done with the course as a whole. And by next week, we should be starting a new course entirely. Do have a wonderful evening and bye for now.